Fantastic. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Arrived webinar featuring Showplace. They are a one-stop shop for design and furnishing of a vacation rental. A quick disclosure before we get started, this is not a research report or investment advice. All opinions expressed in this webinar are those of our presenters, and past performance is not indicative of future results. I'll give folks a few more seconds here to take a peek at this, and then we'll move into our speakers. All right, as a reminder, my name is Corinne Headland, Head of Investor Relations at Arrived. We have Kwao, our Director of New Investment Channels, Justin Miller, who you saw in chat, CEO and co-founder at Showplace, Mark Lumpkin, the sales manager at Showplace. He will be in the chat today with you all. And then Jillian Klein, who's the head account manager at Showplace. Thrilled to have you all today, and thank you for joining us. A quick agenda, so we're all aligned here. Justin's going to walk through the Showplace history, why Showplace, kind of like a problem solution and what they solve for. Carl will be jumping in with him as well. Jillian's going to walk us through a live demo of Showplace, which is absolutely fantastic, dropping in 5 design must-haves in there. Stay tuned. We might have a special giveaway for those who have attended today. And then a before and after of one of our properties, one of the many properties that Showplace has designed and furnished to date. And then if we have time, we will jump into Q&A. So feel free to drop those in the chat and we will do those. All right, Justin, I'm going to welcome you up to the stage to kick things off, as well as Kwao.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having us. I'm really excited to be here, and I'm thrilled about the partnership that Showplace and Arrived have built over the last year or so. And Kwao, thank you so much for joining me up here as well.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you, and the rest of the Showplace team. Also, before we jump into it, just want to thank everyone for hopping on. We really appreciate the comments and questions that roll in as well, and we're very excited to provide a little bit more information of our relationship with Showplace. Also, very excited to showcase our very first onboarding partner webinar here. Very excited to provide that context. And as you all know, one of our core pillars is to provide transparency and information along throughout the life cycle of our property. So very excited to jump in. Thanks, Justin.
Fantastic. Well, to understand the Showplace story, and just to give you guys some background on myself, my story in short-term rentals started in 2013. I traveled all around the world for about 6 months and fell in love with what Airbnb and short-term rentals were doing. And I thought to myself, this is going to be the future. And at the intersection of real estate and technology, I felt that it was an amazing opportunity. And so I started a company in 2013 called Pillow, and it was all about short-term rental management. And we help folks all around the country in 10 different markets manage about 800 properties. And we learned everything there is to learn about the good and the bad of short-term rentals, what to do and what not to do. And in 2018, fortunately, we were acquired by Expedia. And so when 2020 came around, we saw so many people, investors and operators, jumping into short-term rentals, but I was hitting my head against the wall because so many of the folks getting into short-term rentals, they did not understand that the property success is so important at the beginning of the process. When you invest in the setup and you invest in the details and being thoughtful about your business plan, you can actually see much better results over time, both on guest satisfaction and with revenue. And that's really why Showplace was born, is to solve the setup problem within short-term rentals.
On that front, Justin, I think it's also a constant moving bar, right? I know we'll get into it a bit as well, but this industry moves very quickly. New players jump in all the time, and so it's in many cases calibrating and figuring out what the future holds and trying to always be a few steps ahead.
There's a concept I like to talk about. It's called the amenities arms race. And really what used to work on Airbnb, which was a hot plate and an air mattress 6 years ago, no longer work. So if you want to be in that top 25% of short-term rentals in your market, you have to step it up on the amenities. And it's hard to know, where do I get my amenities from? What are products I should be buying? Where should I be sourcing items that have a positive return on investment? And those are all things that Showplace really helps solve. I think from the problem perspective, the reason that we have had such a great partnership with Arrived is that you guys are masters at the real estate acquisition, right? And this new stack is all about identifying the right properties, underwriting, diligence, financing, closing, and that's an amazing thing to do. But what a lot of people forget is, well, now how do I launch my short-term rental asset in my business? I can't just launch a vacant home. It has to be furnished, has to be designed. And that's really where Showplace comes in. We've built a marketplace to help you and other customers think about the properties in a thoughtful way, which is between the interior design, the product procurement, and ultimately the installation. And when you set up the property for success on day one, those reviews and returns should be much higher. Generally speaking, today it's really painful to specialize in all of this. And I think that's why the partnership has really flourished over the last year. And the other interesting thing I like to mention here is, in this industry, the demand side has seen a lot of innovation. What that means is the guest experience to book on Airbnb is seamless, on VRBO is seamless. There's a lot of property management websites. It's so easy to find short-term rentals, but there has not been a lot of innovation on the supply side, which is how do you bring properties to market? And that's really, I think, the exciting part here and all the tips and tricks that we'd like to go through today.
And just real quick, I think the three biggest stages of vacation rentals that we're focusing on right now is the acquisition underwriting piece, which, we're looking at multiple markets, looking at the best locations, the best properties to purchase. There's this design onboarding piece, which is this conversation that we're having now, and then the entire logistics behind it, which is, an incredible topic on its own, and then the ongoing performance and returns of the property, which is also, one of the areas that we want to specialize in. And so just wanted to contextualize that for everyone.
Amazing. And yeah, we've touched on this briefly already, but why is design and furnishing important? It's often an overlooked part of the process. It's a massive challenge. So number one, it's a business requirement. You can't launch a vacant property. You have to have furniture in the home. The next question is, where do I source the furniture? What's been tested? What's going to last a lifetime? You also want to stand out from the competition. As you guys know, there's a lot of supply coming online and competition is fierce. And if you can't change the location of the property, the next best thing that you can change is what the property looks like in the booking photos. That's all about design. That's all about functionality and optimizing the space. And that's really something we dig in on the business requirements. And then lastly, around maximizing return on investment.
And then just one little spec that I want to add there is a lot of new investors come into the vacation rental space, and they will spend all of their money on the down payment and the closing costs and get to the property, and then they'll allocate the rest of the budget to furnishing. But one thing that we do is we're very conscious of that up front. So what are the top amenities, the top designs, the furnishings and equipment and all the various pieces that we need for the property to be a top performer, in addition to, the actual hard asset and location, which I think is very important. It's one of those things that it can't be a, second mind thought. It needs to be very upfront, and you need to have that it's a very involved part of the underwriting as well.
That's a great point. And one of our philosophies is really about starting with the end in mind. And what that means is that the first 6 photos that are going to be on the booking platforms, on Airbnb, on VRBO, that's where we should allocate the budget. What are the first 6 images that guests are going to look at? Is it the great living room or the great outdoor deck and view? And that's where we want to allocate the money. For the 3rd or 4th bedroom, that's maybe less important for driving bookings and occupancy. And I think there's a really interesting strategy that when you level up and you start thinking about these and you have the business plan that you guys are executing on, I think it can come together really nicely. Generally speaking, just want to touch on this, that the worldview that we have is that the system for furnishing real estate today is very broken, it's very difficult, and there's really only two options that most investors are faced with. Number one, do it all yourself. So Quao would take traditionally 3 weeks off of work, he'd go sleep on an air mattress in the home and try to buy stuff from IKEA, right? That just doesn't work any longer. It's complicated, time consuming, and expensive. And then you also can work with local providers. Arrived is acquiring properties all over the country. It's hard to know, who can I rely on? Who's going to be a good vendor in that market, and generally expensive and inconsistent. So our marketplace at Showplace really sets out to solve these two problems and to become one main source of a solution for folks like Arrived. Sort of digging into this a little bit more here, is the existing checklist is about a mile long, right? So Quao's at the property today. He's been there for a few days. We were at the property a week or two ago, and there's a million things you have to do. What a lot of people forget about is, where do I get furniture? How do I source things? Well, the supply chains have been broken. You don't want to buy a couch that's going to take 5 months to arrive. We have to have stuff that's in stock and ready to ship. We also generate a tremendous amount of trash with all the boxes and things that people generally don't think about, is really why the Showplace team exists, and to bring our expertise to the equation on the operational excellence. And our process is really based in the technology, and we help anyone who's basically looking to set up and furnish a property in a really seamless way.
And I'll say that, as an ex operations and logistics manager at Uber, I have a big affinity towards well done logistics, well thought out. Logistics is one of these things that people take for granted, but if it's not done well, everything goes wrong. And so, you mentioned some of these trash hauling, installation. A lot of these pieces are very, very complex, and so I think that's one of the awesome things that Showplace does very well. It's a lot of the logistics involved with the setup and onboarding, which I have a big appreciation for.
Fantastic. Well, super. Let's go ahead and bring up Jillian from the Showplace team to give us some more information.
Thank you, Justin and Qual. That was really great. Some great information there, and I'm super excited to be here and just walk everyone through some of the exciting new technology we've built here at Showplace. So as Justin touched on, because these projects are so logistically complex, we created a really exciting platform for hosts to just stay organized and informed throughout their furnishing journey. So I'm actually going to share my screen here and give everyone a quick demo of it. So in all, the Showplace platform essentially houses all of the documents related to a furnishing project. It allows clients and hosts to view timelines, pay invoices, and communicate directly with their designer, which we have found is really important throughout the process in general. So we like to call this the Showplace Project Portal. And this portal that I'll be demoing is actually for a project that we did for the Arrive team in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. So the first piece of information you will see when you log on to your Showplace portal is your project overview. And this includes all of the important information about your property, the budget, your timeline, your bed and bath breakdown, and it even provides information to your Showplace team member. Through the portal, you are also able to upload and share different property photos. Something we found that's really important is just collaboration throughout this process. So clients really need the ability to upload their property photos, show inspiration photos to their designers, and upload different links. So you can do that through this feature. We've even built out a feature to upload specific links. So this could be a Pinterest board, it could be your Zillow listing, or even your Matterport. If you go up and then you look on the left-hand side of your Showplace portal,
you'll notice that it includes a full breakdown of our furnishing process. So this is the timeline from start to finish. And generally, a furnishing project takes around 6 to 8 weeks from the first time that you meet with your specialized short-term rental designer to your property being what we like to call photo ready. And stage one in this process is attending the design planning meeting. So the design planning meeting is just really about understanding your wants and your needs for the property, as well as what we believe will have the best return for the property in the long run. And then stage two, this will be receiving your mood boards and your floor plans. So the mood board just really allows you to visualize the overall style of your listing, so that you have a sense what your full furnishing proposal will look like. And from here, your designer moves fully into the proposal creation phase. And during this phase, we like to use the term guest-minded design. So it's broken up to a few different categories. The first category is we really want the designs to be functional. We want them to be built to last, but also create a memorable experience for guests. Additionally, we like to factor in occupancy to this. So it goes into every aspect of the design. Is there enough seating in the living room? Does the dining room have enough seating? Is there a place for everyone in the home to just go and relax at the property? And then the last one is, can they be easily maintained and clean for quick turnover? So are your cleaners able to get in and out of the property, or are they going to spend a few hours scrubbing the couch clean? So just a few things that we like to take into consideration while creating the proposal. And then once this proposal is created, we schedule what we call your proposal review call. Once you are finished reviewing your proposal with your designer, you're able to access a full breakdown of everything we propose for your property. So this is a full itemized list. You can see all of your items in one place here, and it's broken down by room. And it just allows you to really visualize what the room board is and then what items go into that specific room. So once you approve these items, we move on to some of the final stages of the furnishing project. You can pay your invoice easily through the Showplace portal right here on this tab. And then from there, we move on to logistics. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated in the process. Logistics includes a few different things. So it's the shipping. We deliver everything to a warehouse and consolidate it there. Taking the inventory, and then the final mile delivery and installation of your property. And we actually have some really fun photos that I'm excited to share with you all of this specific property, so Broken Bow, Oklahoma. And it really just allows you to see everything come to life. So the full process from start to finish. So as you can see here, this is one of the properties we worked on in Broken Bow, Oklahoma for the Arrive team. It's a prime example of seeing what the design process looks like when it fully comes to life. Everything from the initial planning, product selection, to delivery and installation. I think one of the biggest mistakes we see hosts make is that they don't realize how many things go into the setup process. And I know Justin touched on this a little bit, but you have your trash removal. You typically have a team of about 10 people who are there assembling and setting up the furniture, moving it to the correct space. And then once you're done with that, you still have all the final staging, design, and decor pieces. And one hack we always like to say to get your listing photo ready is that you should always have cord concealers for all the cords on the walls. You should have extension cords next to the bed so that guests aren't unplugging lamps left and right. And then just extra decor that's specifically focused on photographing well. So that means extra plants, vases, really anything else to make the property look amazing.
Yeah, so I mean, just want to add a couple of things here. You mentioned some of these as well towards the end, but I call them the owner mindset items throughout the household, which are the small details that create the difference between a 4-star and a 5-star experience. It's many times just the small things. It's having USB chargers near the bedside. It's a couple small like things in the bathroom that make it feel like the property is ready. It's setting up the spoons and forks. I mean, I've shown up personally to a couple Airbnbs that had me take the spoons out of the plastic and put them out, and it was like, it's not a big deal, but it's just like a different experience. I want to feel like I'm at home, not like I'm in some cookie cutter Airbnb that someone set up. So I think that's very important.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think the more we do the installations, the more we learn about what needs to be included in each of these properties and realize how important those little things are. So like you mentioned, even key amenities like having coffee and tea for the guests so that they don't have to go out and buy it, and just really things that elevate the experience for them in the home.
One general concept that I think is important to understand is for each item, we look at what's called a total cost of ownership. So, for example, let's say we're recommending a couch that's $1,000 versus a couch that you can buy at IKEA that might be $600. At first, you might say, "Oh, well, this is a more expensive couch and it's going to, lower my return." But when you factor in things like setup time and the labor that you have to acquire to set up the couch that might take 3 or 4 hours. Maybe the lifespan of that couch is not as high quality. It's not going to last a lifetime with all the wear and tear at a home. We like to look at every single amenity through that lens of total cost of ownership. And often by spending a little more upfront, those items are going to actually be cheaper in the long run and overall increase the return on the property. So that's just an extra little layer to think about. One of the things I had mentioned earlier was this amenities arms race. And so by looking at certain amenities, you can really start to calculate what is my return on investment. So for example, we have looked at the data and know that guests do not pay a premium to park in the garage versus available parking in the driveway. And so therefore it leads us to make recommendations to turn garages into game rooms, for example. And when you make those game room conversions into garage, you're adding square footage, and now you can charge $50 more per night. Other items are the classic hot tub. If I buy a $3,000 hot tub, but I can increase my nightly rent by $150. Fitness equipment. If we invest in a Peloton, we can charge $75 more per night. Murals, for example, and you guys are working on murals. How does that increase the ability for me to book guests and my occupancy? And so I think the last one is really about bunk beds and occupancy itself. We don't want to go crazy and try to put 12 guests into a small property, but if it fits, we might make recommendations like here on the bottom right of a bunk bed to maybe add 2 or 3 more occupants to make it more family friendly. So all of these amenities come together to actually look at the return profile of a property. And it just allows us as a partnership to be a lot more thoughtful about how we're thinking about the business case of each investment over the lifespan of the property.
And one other thing that we also consider for occupancy is the bed bath ratio, right? Like if you have 1 or 2 bathrooms, but you're trying to bring in 12, 14 guests, consider that experience, right? It's one of these, bathrooms are also some of these things that we take for granted until, you show up with 14 people and only 2 bathrooms, and it's not a good experience for anyone.
Yeah, just one quick anecdote and story to share here. There was a property, it was 95% completed, but one of the rooms was delayed on the bunk bed. And any time that we have a delay, we obviously never want to be the blocker. And so for this given property, the bunk bed had not arrived during the week of installation. And it was this amazing bunk bed that looked like a cabin. And over the weekend, we learned that this bunk bed was sitting in a warehouse that was local, but not yet at the property. We didn't want to take that delay. And so just as an example, we literally moved so much to try to get that bunk bed out of the warehouse and to the property within 48 hours. And I personally spent a lot of time thinking through all the various options for you guys on, hey, if we can't get that bunk bed by Tuesday, can we hire someone to build a bunk bed? If we can't get that bunk bed by Tuesday, can I buy one used on Facebook Marketplace, or look at a local distribution center? And so all I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of care that goes into setting up the properties, and I think that the team and partnership go into that a lot. And I know Jillian and the rest of our operations team really ultimately care a lot. We never want to take a delay. If we have to take a delay, hopefully it's just for a day or two, but we're really here and available for you guys and for your investor groups to add that level of care and owner mindset when setting up the properties.
And I mean, for us, we have and we take our fiduciary responsibility very seriously towards our investors about getting the best quality, the best returns on the investments that they make on our platform. And so when we look to not even create partnerships, but just when we look to work with anyone, we need to at least see and observe that they showcase the same values. And Showplace and all the team that we know that's here today, and others also behind the scenes, have demonstrated that very meticulously. And so we're very excited to continue working together.
Great. Are there any questions, Cloud, that we want to address?
If you guys have any other stories or memories, I think it's also one of the things that I wanted to convey on this call today was, there are a lot of things that are taken for granted. The magic that we try to push out is making it look easy, right? We buy properties, they show up, awesome pictures, they perform well on from a revenue standpoint, but I'd like for there to be some additional insight. Some of these stories, I know there was at some point there was a black bear jumping into the back of a truck that was unloading. So I think it's awesome to hear those things, because some of these things are not shown, and that's part of the magic. But I think it's helpful, and for some of the curious folks that are here today, I think it'd be awesome to hear some of that.
Of course. One of the things for us and our team is we are fired up and excited when the property gets completed. After that 6 to 8 week period, that is the culmination of a tremendous amount of work. And ultimately, I think that our North Star as a company is to be able to say, we've created an amazing space for guests to travel from all around the world and create amazing memories with their family and friends. And if we do that, I think we're really helping add to the entire stack and the entire equation, to not just short-term rentals, but to real estate investing specifically.
That's a really fun point you make too, Qual, about all the different experiences you have on site at an installation. I've personally been at quite a few myself, just making sure that everything goes smoothly and making sure that the designs come to life. And I can think of the one in Tennessee that was for one of your properties, the one you mentioned about the bear. It was pretty much any single time that we would walk outside, there'd be a bear in the truck or a bear kind of like lurking around the property. And just little things like that, you really just have to be able to kind of roll with the punches during the installation and sort of troubleshoot to make sure that everything comes together anyway, because you never know what's going to happen in all these different markets and locations. So that was something fun. One thing I do want to mention is, so for this property specifically, for the Broken Bow property, a few of the requests that we had from your team was you guys wanted it to feel like a summer camp cabin feel with modern elements. And if you take a look at all these photos, you just really see that design come to life from the first time we had the design planning call up until the installation. So we used a lot of primary colors. We used plaid for some of the curtains. We used a lot of what we call like sports decor. So some oars that we hung up on the walls. And we even had a movie theater in this property that was very like eclectic. It had a ton of seating and just felt very cozy and homey, which was really cool to see come to life. And I think at the end of the day, it photographed really well also, which helped with the booking. So that was really fun. And it also brings me into some of the must-haves that we recommend having for some of these properties. So there are 5 must-haves that I'd love to go through. And before I get started on them, I do want to announce that we're going to do a little giveaway with them. So one lucky attendee at this webinar will be randomly selected to win a K-Duo coffee maker, which coincidentally is my number 1 on our top 5 must-haves for the short-term rental owner. So the first one's coffee maker, like I said, and the reason we picked this as number 1 is just because guests love being able to start their day with a relaxing cup of coffee. It's really important. We recommend supplying a dual coffee maker on all your properties, along with coffee and tea packs so that they don't have to go out and get them on their own. And this specific coffee maker is cool because it's not only single serve, but it also has a 12-cup pot. So really great for the guests. The second one is an electronic lock. So this is just so that you as an owner can provide access to the property remotely. Someone gets locked out, you're able to let them back in, or even for the cleaners. A set of wine glasses. So this is for guests to really just sit back, relax, enjoy a nice glass of wine, whether it's outside on the porch or in one of the movie theaters in Broken Bow. So really important. And then quality linens and mattresses. So we recommend investing upfront in all quality linens just to ensure that your guests are really getting a good night's sleep. And then the last one that I'll leave you all with is just entertainment space. And we broke this up into twofold. So in all, it's important to have a place where guests can gather and create experiences together. So we recommend having smart TVs in all your properties that are already logged into streaming accounts so the guests aren't fumbling to get into their accounts, as well as games. So games can be board games, something as simple as cards. Some of the hotter games right now are Giant Jenga, Giant Connect 4. Those 2 have been big ones at the properties. So just anything to really elevate the experience.
I would maybe say maybe not Uno, because I think Uno does away with friendship. So cautious of what games you choose.
Uno and Monopoly Deal. Sometimes that goes south.
Fantastic. Sorry, we have some handiwork happening live at the property, so there's a little bit of drilling. So if you hear that, bear with me. But Jillian, Justin, Quao, thank you so much for the prepared remarks. For the folks on the line, this is just an inkling of everything that takes place behind the scenes. And I know for Quao and myself and the whole Arrive team, we're so grateful for our partnership with Showplace, Justin, Jillian, Mark, and everybody in between on making these properties as beautiful and as functional as possible. Jillian, my number 1 must-have is absolutely the Keurig. It has drip and then the actual Keurig pod. I was actually in an Airbnb last weekend, and now I'm hypercritical of Airbnbs or short-term rentals. And there was a drip coffee machine with no grounds. So we're cutting open Keurig pods and dumping it in. So these things make a big difference. It's the little things that make or break a vacation rental. So appreciate the time. I know we have some very specific Showplace questions. We were actually going to just move into Arrive questions, but Justin and Jillian, we would love to keep you up on the stage for a few folks that have written in. So I'm going to remove these slides. One moment here. And I saw Mark in chat too, which is absolutely fantastic. 1 second here as we throw these up on the stage. All right. The first one is from Amanda. What is their process to determine what to include in a furnished listing to get the most ROI? What does the partnership look like to determine that? And for example, a property near Disneyland might want bunk beds, but a property on Oregon coast may focus on outdoor living space, which I totally hear, like Cannon Beach area. So maybe, Justin, if you want to focus on the ROI, and then Quao, have you tackle the partnership perspective?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, we touched on a lot of the ROI pieces, which is we think about each large amenity with what we call the total cost of ownership. So for every property, it starts with an overall business plan and budget. We take that budget, we want to allocate it to what we think the first 6 photos on that listing are going to be 8 weeks from now. And then we take those first general areas and we allocate budgets to them, looking at each broken down amenity by total cost of ownership. And we're on track to do 350 properties by the end of this year. And so that means we have a tremendous amount of data about what amenities work well and what amenities don't work well. And to no one's surprise, the amenities that don't work well are things that do not last a lifetime. They're not hospitality quality. So for example, we're never sourcing from IKEA, for example. And the reason is that IKEA is not made for the wear and tear that hundreds of guests per year are going to have on that property. So our vendors and the places that we source products for are built for more of a hospitality, boutique hotel mindset. And so those generally are going to come with a slightly higher price tag, but they're going to last so much longer from that ROI perspective. And then the other one is really looking at that business use case. We define up front, is this a family-friendly property? Okay, we're going to go, with bunk beds. We want to incorporate the idea of families coming and staying here. Maybe there's 2 families that can stay in a larger property. So it really depends generally on the region. We take a lot of local and regional artwork and decor into account. For example, in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, we've had a custom sign for that property. We brought in the oars because we're near, some water elements. And I think bringing that local experience is at the core of what guests are looking for. Now, you have to remember, guests are picking a specific location to stay for a reason. They are staying in Broken Bow, Oklahoma, and so they want to have that natural and more localized experience. So we try to bring that into the equation.
Cool. Awesome. Completely agree. And then I guess from a partnership perspective, as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things is we absolutely need a partner who shows and demonstrates that they care in the quality and the value that is delivered to the properties, right? So we came in, launched our first vacation rental last September. We've been here for a while. We've seen a variety of different outcomes, results. Our team has remained as involved as needed. And so we need a partner that shows the level of quality is, what we expected. One thing is designs and layouts, drawn up, and the other is the full execution. I've always said, dreaming is easy, executing is the hardest part. So we need a partner that can demonstrate the end-to-end bridging of those 2 things. And then, willing to work with us, right? We are very vested in the final performance of the properties. And so we sometimes want to be very deeply included in these conversations, right? I may not be the best designer, but I do know that I need a hot tub in some area that looks well. I may not be able to choose a color palette, but I do know what kind of robust furniture I want to be seeing in there. So, working with a partner that is open to some of this feedback is very helpful for us. And then the last piece, last but not least at all, is the scalability aspect. Being able to service multiple properties in different markets. We're moving very quickly. We're going into various markets. And so finding someone that is able to provide that same high quality across multiple markets, incredibly important for us.
Absolutely. And wow, I think you have to give yourself more credit on the color palette, because you're very much aligned with what the Showplace team has put together, which is absolutely fantastic. And I think too, and we know this from personal experience, there's a very limited window when you're scrolling and looking at Airbnbs to find one that fits your aesthetic or accommodates the number of people, or if it's dog friendly, if it feels like a place you can see your family. So that's why it's so crucial to have a well curated property that folks can actually visualize themselves sitting in. I know for the property that we're currently at in Scottsdale, it's been a labor of love. And we've had professional photos come in during the morning and night for twilight, just to showcase what it will look like. We've had models step in, a whole, showing off the amenities and everything that's in here. And that's a huge testament testament to everything Quow's team has been able to do, and then Showplace putting everything together. So we can't wait to share this property next week for you all to see, to bring some of what we're talking about today to life and to all the properties that we've had. Quow, how many properties have we had to date that Showplace has designed?
I think at this point, we're definitely well into the double digits. I'll need to get back and confirm. I know they've been with us for a while now, and we may not have started out with them because it took us time to go in and really connect with different players in the space. But we're definitely going to be doing many more coming up.
Yeah, we're into the double digits. I believe the number is around 14. Really interestingly, I just want to touch on who the designers are. This is an important aspect. So we have this amazing group of contract designers on our team, and they are from all of the top short-term rental places that you would expect. So we have folks who have worked at Airbnb, at Avant Stay, at Landing, at Vacasa, right? So literally getting trained at all the best places. And what they bring with them are all of the latest design trends on what people are looking for in short-term rentals and how to approach this. And so it helps us not just with the quality of execution, but also really set up for ourselves for success on the front end with the great design team that we've assembled in our network.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes a village, I would say, Justin, in terms of all the experts that you're bringing in. And I think obviously with your background in creating Pillow and ownership there, and then working through an acquisition, you've been able to truly see every bit of in and out to be able to highlight who the best people are to include, and really streamline those processes to be a one-stop shop, which is absolutely phenomenal to see. All right, I see a few more questions flowing in here before we shut our virtual doors for the day. Some wonderful questions in here. What are some current trends in short-term rental interior design? Jillian, this might be something for you to answer. What are the regional design considerations that influence short-term rental success? And what are some common design mistakes to avoid in short-term rentals? So this might be a hybrid between Jillian and Justin for some details here.
Let me start off on what to avoid. I think that's a really good question, and we've definitely had our fair share of things that we'll never do again. So the number one thing, generally speaking, is the materials of the products that you put in the home should not be, for example, white, because that's not going to last the lifetime of a vacation rental. If something is white or suede or in the type of material is not going to stand up to literally hundreds of strangers sleeping or participating in that home, literally you're not going to be investing that budget correctly. For example, in having those types of materials that just aren't going to last. I think the other one on the execution side is we have invested a tremendous amount in our supply chain to understand inventory. You guys have to realize there's about 300 different items, everything from a small vase and a plant to the large couch and bed. There's 300 SKUs on average that go into a property. And if you don't know what those inventory items are a week or two before that installation window begins, then it really sets you up for failure. So number one, I would say, is the inventory, the supply chain has to be on point. Now, that's not a consideration if you're doing this as a one-off. If Quow's setting up one of his own properties, he just gets everything sent to the property and then risks whether or not it's going to be on the porch when he gets there or not. But as we're doing this at scale. And so we have a lot of considerations around inventory management, SKU, chain of custody, making sure all those items arrive on time. And the second related item is really about labor. On average, 3-bedroom, 2-bath home is going to take 100 man hours to set up all of the furniture and property. So the question for you to consider on what to avoid is, if you're an individual, you should plan on being there for 2 or 3 weeks, That's 100 man hours. Or what we've opted to do is set up large labor teams where we're able to knock out these installations within the first 2 to 3 days. And that's a new learning and iteration for us that we've learned to avoid on the installation and supply chain side.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, and just to touch on some of the current design trends, I mean, this is such a loaded question at this point, but I think one thing that we like to start with is just looking at the local comps in the area to figure out what is selling to these guests and why are people booking specific properties. That's really important because obviously it does vary based off of the specific market or location. A few things that we are noticing is themed homes obviously is a big one. People love to see a specific themed home depending on which area the place is located. They really like multifunctional spaces. So just spaces that you're able to have a bunch of guests in and maybe play games in one area, but then relax and watch TV in another area and sip wine in another. So really multifunctional spaces. And then the last one that we've noticed start to pop up is some wellness spaces. So some places really like to have a little dedicated workout room or yoga room or just space for guests to go and sort of wind down or get in their exercise for their vacation. So that's always an interesting one. And then the last trend I would say is just your outdoor area games. People are building out a lot of games. So whether it's Giant Jenga and Connect Four, whether it's Mini Putt, just really anything to separate you from the competition and create a fun experience for the guests.
And then just want to add a bit more color there as well. Multiple listing channels have different list of amenities, and you're able to show we're able to obtain revenue that different properties get based on different items and amenities that they have. And so we can sort of do like a difference in differences analysis to sort of try to gauge the ROI of different amenities. And as someone alluded to earlier, you are able to in a way determine what amenities you need for certain markets, right? So in Scottsdale, do not come to play if you don't have a pool at all. Like, don't even think about it. It's a must, right? That is probably your highest ROI amenity. After that, you have a couple of things like hot tub, heated pool, obviously the inside, all the way down to coffee makers, USBs next to outlets, right? So there's a lot of that research that we do as we are looking at properties, as we're looking at markets.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think you just hit me in my soul, Qual, when you talked about the pool being at an Arizona property. It's spicy hot in August. I would still 11 out of 10 visit at this time, but only if I can immerse myself in water, literally at any time. And the pool that we have at most of our property or pools that we have are absolutely phenomenal. The one in this particular property has like, what are they, Quao? How do I explain them properly? Like,
I like fire pits.
Fire pits, but they're way cooler than just normal fire pits. They set
Sure.
this
I mean, we just got to show the photos. That's the only way to do it.
Absolutely. So folks, stay tuned for next week. We'll have more coming with the property that we're in today, but essentially it's a waterfall with these cool fire pits. It belongs in like Moana or something. So very excited to share. I know there was a few other questions that I wanted to jump to. One quick thing, Wow, I know we had a few questions on pricing as a whole and what that looks like. And I always like to break this out because I want to, eliminate any confusion from an investor standpoint. So if you could walk through the fees that we have associated with Arrived, and then perhaps where folks can find out more information with Showplace.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say the best document that showcases all of the costs involved in onboarding would be the offering circular, right? And then on all of our property pages, we show Arrive's fee involved with the management and what comes with the property. I would say those are the best places to go and double check all those figures. And then as I mentioned earlier, we do set aside a pretty significant budget for the amenities and furnishings and installations. Now, keep in mind that figure includes, hot tubs and more like hard GC amenity items that are needed at the property, and also includes the work and costs involved with furnishing, designing, all of that. So I would definitely point to the offering circulars that we showcase on all of our properties, and then look through the property page to show what are the top amenities at the property, also very important, and the fees that Arrived has.
Absolutely. Wow, thanks so much for walking through that. I dropped a link to our offering circulars. As mentioned, those are live on every single property page, and also a link to our fees that we have in place. We break those out between the two types that we have, for if it's a long-term rental, single-family residential, or a vacation rental. And then if you're more interested in Showplace in particular, take a look at their website. I dropped a link in chat as well. I know Mark shared some details, but if you're looking to design your property, this could be the perfect partnership for you. Let's move back. I know I had one other question in here from San. Is there an evaluation of how successful a design choice is after the rubber hits the road? Justin, I'm going to kick that one to you.
Yeah. So the way that we look at this is through case studies. So we look at one comp that's in that market, and then we compare it to the property that we've designed. And then we take a 12-month trailing view of how did the property A, which is our comp, versus property B, our subject property, compare when looking at revenue. More specifically, occupancy and nightly rate, which gets you a revenue number. And so, for example, the case study most recently that we've done was at a property in Florida, and it was a large condo building. We looked at that condo building for a unit that looks like, your 1980s grandmother's condo in Florida. And then you looked at a unit that was in the exact same building, one floor down, that had a modern aesthetic and a modern design. And if you compare, this is a good apples to apples comparison, and you look at those comps and you look at, okay, here's the investment, here's the ROI pieces, looking at an annual revenue based, we've seen, this is Showplace numbers, our case studies, about 22% higher on a revenue basis when looking at comps in the area for well-designed and professional design homes. And so that's really how we think about it, and generally how we like to track the data after 1 year that every property is live in the system.
Justin, that's fantastic. And I'm curious too, do you all surface like reviews on these vacation rentals as well, and like look for if somebody's mentioning like they love a coffee pot or the beds are really comfortable?
So by our estimates, about 70% of all reviews that are from Airbnb, guests are going to be mentioning some level of amenity or design, because what else are they rating besides the space that they're living in? And so that's something that we are excited about launching a better, more robust review management program. But in general, yes, we look at reviews. It helps inform, hey, do we want to continue to use that vendor? Do we want to continue to use those items? Because that's something that obviously if we're not getting good reviews or it's not lasting the lifespan of a vacation rental, it's not someone that we're going to continue to work with.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think even more so now about how to critique a 5-star review versus a 1-star, and what that looks like, perfection versus a little bit of area of opportunity, and all of those different things like we've talked about make such a big impact on your experience as a whole. If I've missed any questions in the chat, keep me honest. We'll give it a few more moments here. Would absolutely love to hear from anybody in the chat. I know there was one actually in here from Amanda, and I think this is interesting. Does Showplace warranty or guarantee their work after the listing goes live? For example, if a bed frame breaks on the first day?
That's a good question. Before I jump into that, just to the earlier point, one of the things with the Arrived properties specifically is of those 10 homes that we've done in the last year plus with Arrived, the early reviews that are coming in have all been super positive 5-star reviews. And I think that's something just to call out, that as the partnership grows and we look at that together, we can make better informed decisions on what types of products that we want to scope for the properties. So
Absolutely.
anyway, there's that. Yeah, and then on the topic of warranty and guarantee their work, so the short answer is yes. And the way that it generally works is that each one of our vendors, we negotiate special pricing that's slightly below retail, and then each of those vendors have their own various guarantee on those products. And so that's something, if a vendor has a warranty or a guarantee for that bed frame that lasts a year, that obviously gets extended to you as the customer, and that's something that would be honored. So it really depends by vendor, but in general, the short answer is yes.
Amazing. Awesome. It looks like we cruised through all the questions today, which is absolutely fantastic. I can't tell you how much we appreciate all of your time, and also for all the folks on the line that have sat with us for 57 minutes to walk through prepared remarks and all the questions. So Justin, Jillian, Quao, any closing remarks before we shut our virtual doors for the day?
This is a very complex world of onboarding. Again, our responsibility is to make it look like magic, right? We want for our investors to come onto our platform, never have to see or feel or, Corinne sweat as we're covering stuff in the back, right? So that's sort of the magic that we want to continue providing. And we're extremely appreciative of working with partners like Showplace to help us with the logistics, make sure that we continue to bring the highest quality properties to various platforms, and thus performance and yields for our investors.
Thank you for having us here. We're excited.
Yeah, thank you, Quao. Thank you, Corinne. It's been absolutely amazing, and we just love our partnership with you all. And I'm so excited to see the final photos for the listing that you're on site at right now. And I know everyone else is too. So thanks.
Fantastic. Well, Justin, Mark in chat, thank you so much for your time today and stepping away from everything you all do behind the scenes. We wouldn't have such beautiful properties if it wasn't for our partnership. So we so appreciate you. Quao, thank you for your time jumping away from all the operations that we're doing behind the scenes right now. We so appreciate you. And for everybody on the line, we wouldn't be doing these webinars if we weren't walking alongside you each and every day. So thank you so much for sticking with us for an hour. I saw we had some Arrive teammates in the chat as well, which is absolutely fantastic. If you have any questions, always feel free to ping support@arrive.com or hit us up in the chat function in the bottom right-hand corner of our platform. Mark shared a link to Showplace. Feel free to click that link if you're interested in learning more. And as Jillian said, stay tuned for the giveaway. We're going to be doing a random selection for that Keurig, my favorite one. It's in my house. I use it more than an espresso machine. So very excited for that. But thank you again, team, and hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone. Justin,
everyone.
Jillian, thank you.